Good morning, everyone. So for our class for today in elementary or LM28, teaching English in the elementary grades through literature, we'll be talking about the how or the study of the literature. Of course, before you teach the literature, you need to be knowledgeable first. What is literature? When we say literature, what are this? What are the contents of literature? What are the elements of literature, and so on? Okay, because as what the famous quotation says, especially in teaching, you cannot give what you don't have. Again, that's the quotation. You cannot give what you don't have, which means to say we cannot teach our students the knowledge if we don't know what we are teaching. Okay, just one way of saying that we need to study literature before we study how to teach literature, because we cannot teach literature if even us, you yourselves as a teacher, don't know what is literature all about. What is literature? When we say literature, what are the examples of literature? What is meant by literature? When can we say that this is a product of literature? Okay, so that will be just around the content of our lecture for today. It's all about the introduction to literature, elements of literature, and all about literature. Okay, so we have this story. Example, a story is a doorway by Richard Peck. Okay. A story is a doorway that opens on a wider place. A story is a mirror to reflect the reader's face. A story is a question you hadn't thought to ponder. A story is a pathway inviting you to wonder. A story is a window. A story is a key. A story is a lighthouse beaming out to sea. A story is a beginning. A story is an end. And in the story's middle, you just might find a friend. Actually, this is just a wonderful literary piece of work by Richard Beck, which sums up or tells something all about the beauty that the story offers. Okay, try to understand the content of this literary piece of work. It's all about the story, what the story can offer to the students, what literary piece of work could actually a student could offer or could get from this. What are the lessons we could get from the stories or the different literary piece of work? This is something that the elementary teachers should be capitalizing for. You need to get so much of this courage, knowledge, and understanding about the beauty, the art that a story or a literature could give to the students. Okay, so that is the content or the sum up explanation about this literary piece of work. It's like a door. It's like a door that through this story we could it could lead you into different ways. You could understand different cultures. You could understand others. You could mirror your own life. You could see the situation of other people. In short, it's like a door wherein this is a story. It's like a door that because of this, it opens you to many situations. Okay. So when can we say that a story is a good story? It is when, okay, you alter in some way. It should change your thinking. When the times comes by that you are reading a story and then it changes your thinking, it's a good story. It changes your feeling. Like you feel that you are one of the characters in the story. Okay? If you feel that you are the person who is being hurt in the story, that's actually a good story. Your psyche, your thinking, or the way you look at things. Just like when you read this story, when you watch this movie, it's like your perspective in life changes. Okay, a story is an abstract experience. It's said abstract experience because it's only from words. Okay, only words that you give life when you read it. Okay, it's rather like venturing through a maze. When you come out of it, you should feel slightly changed. Okay, that's according to Allen saying, no, that when you read a story, it's like you are in a maze, which means you are in an obstacle where you are looking for your way out. It's like a maze. And then when you come out, it's like you are really changed as a person. It really changes you, which means you just read a good story. Okay? And then why do we need to study literature? There are so many reasons why we need to study literature, aside from us as a teacher, but basically, literature is filled with ideas that need to be explored. There are so many majestic ideas in literature that we just need to explore. We just need to read. We just need to understand. We just need to apply in ourselves so that we could appreciate the beauty of literature. Okay, which means it's just on the shelter. Okay, just wanted to be read, just wanted to be explored. That's literature. Aside from that, literature helps us to see our world in new ways. We see the world in new ways because literature offers different feelings, offers different lessons that we could get. It brings us to a deeper understanding of life, because literature is talking about the life lessons, a life of the people, different people all around the world, By literature, we are able to mirror our lives with other people. We could understand the meaning of life in a deeper sense. Because as we grow, it's innate that we are little by little learning what is life. But with literature, you could go deeply understanding what life really means. What is our purpose as a human being living in this world? Okay? And then this until pertain or presents a vocabulary with which we can discuss literature and offer some suggestions for appreciating and judging literature. Okay? And now, let's talk about the elements of literature. We have the elements of literature: characters, conflict, setting, theme, narrative, point of view, style, plot, and tone. Okay, so let's talk about the elements of literature. Now, talking about the elements of literature, these are the ingredients in accomplishing a literature. Okay, first we have the characters. As we all know, characters completes the story. Without characters, there's no story. There's no people who will make into a realization or to act, and to give meaning to the story. These are the characters. Now we have the types of characters. We have the protagonist. When we say protagonist, this is the hero. In Tagalog, ito yung bida ng story. Tinatawag silang protagonist. Okay? This is the central figure with whom we usually sympathize or identify. Ibig sabihin, as a reader or as a person who watches the movie, we always give sympathy to the protagonist, di ba? It gives us a feeling like, oh, what will happen to the protagonist? Oh, the protagonist is being hurt, and so on and so forth. Because that's the role of protagonists. They are the heroes. Sila yung bida. Nakikisimpatya tayo sa ikakabuti ng bida ng storya. Okay? Second type of character, we have the antagonist. When we say antagonist, these are the villain. Okay? Ito yung mga kontrabida. Okay? The figure who opposes the protagonist and creates the conflict. Okay? Opposes the protagonist, which means binabaliktad na yung protagonist for them to have the conflict para magkaroon ng away. Okay? So that's the role of the antagonist. We also have the foil character, the figure whose personality traits are the opposite of the main characters. This is a supporting character and usually made to shine the protagonist. Okay? Pag sinabi natin foil character, ito yung mga supporting actor and actresses. Okay? It gives a more meaning to the protagonist. It brings more colors to the protagonist. These are the foil characters. Okay? And then the ways characters are portrayed, there are different characterization that they have. First, they have the flat characters. These are the static characters or the stereotypes characters. Who are this? They have no depth and no change. They do not change at all. These are the characters that doesn't change at all. We only see one side or aspect of them. Most supporting characters are portrayed in this way. For example, a strict teacher, a helpful policeman, and an evil stepmother. Okay? Kung sinabi natin flat characters, the characters that they have doesn't change. When they're strict, even at the end of the story, they're still strict. A helpful policeman, they doesn't change at all. Okay, or an evil stepmother, even at the end of the story, they are still evil. These are the fat characters. We also have the round characters or the dynamic characters. They have more fully developed personalities. They are developed in their personality aspect. And then we expect the protagonist and antagonist to be rounded individuals who express a range of emotion and change throughout the narrative, usually toward greater maturity. Okay, these are the dynamic characters or the round characters. And then the ways characters are revealed. Okay? Iba-iba kasi pagkaka-reveal ng character na yun. How are they revealed? First, what the narrator says about the character. It depends. Because the narrator may reveal the character differently. Or what the other characters say about the character. When it did. Okay? The character was being presented to the readers by the way how other characters tell something about the other characters. Okay? And then what the character says about himself or herself. Ibig sabihin siya mismo nagprepresenta ng sarili niya. That, hi, I am this and this one, I am this and this one. Okay? And then lastly, what the character actually does. Ibig sabihin, it was not presented by the narrator or the other character or siya mismo, pero dun siya naprepresenta na siya pala yung protagonist sa pamamagitan ng mga ginagawa niya in the story. Okay? And then, we also have the setting. Okay, the setting refers to the time. This is very important. Geographical location, saan ginawa. General environment, pag sinabi natin environment and circumstances, anong klaseng atmosphere ang meron doon sa story na yon. Okay? And then the setting helps establish the mood of the story. Yes, it gives the mood of the story. Kasi kung saan man na na-held yun, okay, kung anong oras man niya yun, nagbibigay yun ng kulay, okay, sa story na meron tayo. We have two types of setting. Integral setting, okay, fully described in both time and place, usually found in historical fiction. It's very detailed yung pagkaka-describe in integral setting because they are fully described. Usually this happens to the documentaries or historical fiction. Okay, of course, if talking about the history, okay, it always comes back to the history, the time, what are the historical events during that day. Okay, that's integral setting. We also have the backdrop setting. Okay, the setting is vague and general. Pag sinabing vague, hindi masyadong klaro ba? Okay, which helps to convey a universal timeless tale. And then this type of setting is often in folk tales, okay? And then simply sets the stage and the mood. For example, long ago in a cottage in the deep woods, diba? That statement. Once upon a time, there was a great land that had an emperor. Diba? Hindi masyadong detailed. Saan pala ito na great land? Saan pala ito na deep woods? So very vague. Kumbaga, malabo siya. But still, it gives meaning to the, or mood to the story itself. Okay? So that's the difference. Integral setting, detailed, yung time, yung setting, whereas backdrop setting, it still gives a setting, but not that detailed, or medyo vague siya, medyo malabo. But still gives a mood and setting to the story. We also have the narrative point of view. Pag sinabi natin point of view, what is your opinion? How do you take this story? Okay? We have the internal narrator, the first person narrator. Okay? So when we say first person, ibig sabihin palagi tayong gumagamit ng I in the story. I that refers to yourself and herself. Okay? The narrator is a character in the story, often but not necessarily the protagonist. Okay? So this narrative point view allows for a very personal touch in the storytelling. Very personal yung pagkaka-story mo kasi ang gamit mo is internal narrator. Palaging I. Okay? So which means tell something about you. Now we also have narrator or narrative point of view which is omniscient. Okay? Omniscient narrator, multiple points of view. Narrator is all-knowing. Multiple, kahit ano. No? Is not a character, hindi siya character sa story, pero alam niya yung story. The omniscient narrator can show the thoughts and expressions of any character in the story. It permits the writer the broadest scope. Okay? So, dito sa omniscient, okay, wala siyang stand, all-knowing siya, wala siyang role, pero alam niya yung lahat na nangyari sa story. That's what we call omniscient narrator. We also have the limited narrator. External subjective narrator, this is what we call the third person or the point of view. Okay? The narrator is not the character in the story, but look at the things only through the eyes of a single character. Okay? So this type of narrative permits the narrator to quickly build a close bond between the protagonist and the reader. No? So, mas nabibigyan siya ng connection yung bida, pati yung nagbabasa, kasi limited lang yung narrator niya. Okay? Without being confined by the protagonist's educational or language restrictions. Okay? We also have the plot. When we say plot, series of interconnected events in which every occurrence has a specific purpose. Okay, a plot is all about establishing connections, suggesting causes, and showing relationships. Nangyari palagi itong plots in the story. Okay, dito makikita yung pagkakasunod-sunod ng story. Ano-ano yung mga events dito and that one that makes a big impact in the story. Meron tayong apat na types ng plot structure. We have the dramatic or progressive plot. This is the chronological structure that establishes the setting and the conflict. Okay, setting and the conflict. Then follows the rising action. Okay, and then the climax. Pag sinabing climax, ito yung peak of action and turning point. Ito kumbaga kapag nanonood tayo, ito na yung pinaka-intense ba? Kumbaga yung kahit na masyado na, we need to read this one. Okay? And then the denouement, a wrapping of a loose ends. Wrapping up of a loose ends. Ibig sabihin, patapos na yung intense na story. Again, yung setting, and then nagkaroon ng problem, rising action, umiinit na yung problem, merong climax yung sa intense part of the story, and then denouement or yung patapos na yung problem. Meron din tayong episodic plot. Okay, chronological structure, but consists of series loosely related incidents. Usually chapter length, tied together by common theme or characters. Okay, work best when the writer wishes to explore personalities of the characters. Ginagamit ito siya para yung kada character is mas makilala pa ng reader. Okay? The nature of their existence, the flavor of an era. So this is the example. Pataas, pababa lang din siya. This is the episodic plot. Rising action, climax, baba na naman, may rising action, may climax na naman, and then paulit-ulit. Okay? With this type of plot, it will give more picture and description. What is the character or who is this character? It will allow the reader to understand or get to know more about the character. It will reveal the character more. Okay? And then we have the parallel plot. Then the writer weaves two or more dramatic plots that are usually linked by a common character and similar theme. Okay, there's a similarity in character and theme, that's parallel plot. And then the flashback. Okay, of course, in every story, there's always a flashback. I mean, not all the time, but commonly, there's a flashback. Okay, so when we say flashback, information about that occurred earlier, that's in the past, of course. What's the goal of this? It permits the authors to begin the story in the midst of the action, but later fill in the background to full understanding of the present events. Flashbacks can occur more than once in the different parts of the story. This is true. Diba? Even if we're watching a story, I mean, reading a story or watching a movie or teleserye, no, there's always a flashback on the important parts only of the story or the movie. Okay? Paiba-iba siya kung saan siya pwedeng ilagay. Minsan doon sa part of the story na merong inaalala yung character. Anytime, there's always a flashback that we could inject or that we could insert in the story. No? So it could appear more than once in a different part of the story. And then of course we have the conflict. When we see conflict, this is the problem. Okay? And very important that in literary works, there's always a problem. Because the problem will give more feelings of interest. Okay? Kumbaga, mas binubuhan ng problem yung story. Kasi if there's no problem at all, it will not be a feeling of like a roller coaster. Sometimes you're at up, you're very intense, sometimes you're at down. Kumbaga, What is an excitement if we don't have any conflict at all? Okay? When this conflict or problem, dito na umiikot yung story. That's the time there's a story because of the problem. Okay? So the common types of conflicts, merong protagonist against another, protagonist against society, protagonist against nature, protagonist against self. Of course, all begins with the protagonist kasi siya naman yung bida. Okay, minsan kaaway niya yung ibang tao, kaaway niya yung community, kaaway niya yung nature, or kaaway niya mismo yung sarili niya. A single story may contain more than one type of conflict. Okay? And then we also have the theme. Pag sinabing theme, ano yung klase ng story na meron ka? Okay? Was it a horror, comedy, okay, love story, or romantic? And then so on. The theme is the main underlying idea of piece of literature. Okay? It is woven subtly into fabric of the story rather than being lectured or preached by the author. Not all the time kailangan i-promote na this is the theme, but the people will feel and see what is the theme. Among the frequently found thematic issues in the children's literature are the problems of growing up, minsan ganito yung nagiging topic or theme, and maturing, di ba? Such as adjustment to society, love and friendship, achieving one's identity, and finding one's place in the world. These are just some common examples of a theme that an author could choose. Now we also have the style. Pag sinabing style, yung style of word choice. Sentence length and construction, syempre, consider yan. Kapag gumawa ka ng story, consider mo yan if you are using short sentences to convey suspense, tension, and swift action. Diba? Pag sinabing short sentences, kailangan, although madali siya gawin kasi short lang, pero mahirap siya. Kasi kailangan yung short words mo is fit doon sa ideas mo. Diba? So risky din siya. Longer sentences works best kapag you are doing more explanations, descriptions. And then prose has a rhythm just as poetry does. That is, rhythm can be produced by a juxtaposition of sounds, the use of repetition with slight variation of patterns, and varied length of the sentences. Okay, that's what we call prose. We also have exposition. Pag sinabi exposition, yung narrative or narrator's passage that will provide background information and introduce the characters. Okay? Children prefer balance between exposition and dialogue. And pag sinabing dialogue, ito is spoken by the characters. Exchange of thoughts. That's what we call dialogue. Usually to each other, not to the reader, of course. Children especially enjoy dialogue as a realistic and convincing way of defining the character. Diba? Kapag na mga nasa reading stories nila, hindi siya narrating from the author to the reader. Pero minsan, meron mga dialogue. Madalas ito sa mga children's story para mas makita natin, ay, si B1, kinausap niya si B2, ganito, ganyan. That's a dialogue, actually. For the children to also appreciate more the art of communication and defining the character, getting to know the character more. We also have the tone. Pag sinabing tone, ano yung mood ng author? Yung manner of expression niya sa work ng literature niya. Example, gumawa siya ng poem. Paano niya kinonvey yung poem na yon? Okay, ano yung tone niya? Ano yung didactic niya, humor niya, satirical niya, and so on. Okay? Minsan passionate, sensitive, minsan sentimental, minsan jealous, indifferent, okay, poignant, warm, agitated, and so on. There's so many emotions that a person could express. Di ba? Ganun din naman tayo. When you're telling a story to someone, it really depends on how we actually convey the story. Di ba? Minsan, depende yan. Pagkakaintindi ng tao, galit tayo kasi ganun din natin na-express yung story natin. Okay? And so on. Okay, so very important that the manner of expression is taken into consideration. We have the humor. Okay, incongruity is the foundation of the humor. Remember that. We laugh at the tension resulting from out of the ordinary. Humor is elusive. Humor tends to be age-specific. Humor can be sympathetic or negative. Pwede rin kasi humor nakaka-hurt. Pwede rin nakikisipatya. One prerequisite is the victim must seem to deserve the fate of the harm must not be critical. Meron tayong 10 types of humor. Exaggeration, incongruity, surprise, slapstick, absurdity, situational humor, ridicule satire, defiance, violence, and verbal humor. Okay? Pag sinabi naman ng parody, ito yung imitation, di ba? Ginagaya. No? It's another piece of literature using exaggeration for comic purposes. Okay? So madalas mayroong mga imitation or parody, di ba? A degree of sophistication that deconstructs the original story. Okay, na deconstruct siya. Minsan, nagiging iba na yung depiction ng story galing sa original. Minsan, naiiba na siya. But still, meron siyang inspired of. That's what we call it parody. Okay? It can also demonstrate the vitality, literature, and suggest new ways of interpreting the old tales. Okay? So, kumbaga, yung mga old na story, pwede siyang ma-revise, napaparody siya. No? Para mag-iba rin yung interpretation ng tao. Okay? And then condensing tones, pag sinabing condensing tones, these are the inappropriate for children's stories, placing the adult narrator in a superior position. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, kailangan as elementary teachers, as you are becoming, no? Kailangan iwasan itong condensing tones. Ibig sabihin, hindi pwede ito sa mga bata. Parang the author is placing as an adult. Example, yung mga story is moralizing, didactic, sentimental, okay? Na hindi ma-appreciate ng children's literature, not especially nowadays, okay? So those are the introduction and the elements of literature. Okay, so thank you very much everyone for listening. So just review our lesson for today, and it will be please study because next meeting we'll be having a quiz, or I might be importing quiz in our e-class, so just be updated. Thank you everyone.